Hi, so I'm Catherine Johnstone, and I'm talking about how and why I became a sexologist, which is a sex coach, essentially. Everyone has a right to a healthy, happy, functioning sexuality, and that can mean solo, that can mean partnered, whatever it means to them. But that sexuality is, and sexual health is part of human health and bodily health. And that it is not something that we can live without. That it is a very, very important part of physical and mental and spiritual well-being. And I don't think anyone should be really deprived of that. And helping people to have that is why I got into this. Many people used to always come to me. I went to a boarding school, I went away to school, and people were always coming in my room and asking advice. And a lot of the times I was the one who would get into technique for them. It wasn't necessarily like relationship advice. It was mostly the hands-on stuff. And the feedback I've had since my younger years is that I'm able to hold that space for people. So I was, in my younger years, very often the person that was honored to receive someone's coming out that they needed to share, sometimes a trauma. And so it's really not a role that I sought. It's something that came to me organically over the years. And I decided when I did a career change out of professional tourism PR that I wanted to really help people with this and learn a little bit more about what's going on with them. So actually I decided very much to pursue the sexology training while I was getting my master's in clinical psych at Columbia University Teachers College Spirit, Mind, Body program. I had come from yoga teacher training where I was getting very, very interested in the connection of mind, body, and the interaction of the breath actually with the body. And my interest in the breath has carried me well over into the sexuality because it is a huge component of our sexual health, the spiritual aspects of our sexuality like Tantra. And so when I was at Columbia, I really wanted to add in more of the body science. And I was also very privileged to study with wonderful sexologist Dr. Sari Locker. And I was able to lecture on BDSM for the class a few times and bring this out to young people. And that really, really inspired me to see how many college students had a lot of questions and needed some guidance. And that inspired me to want to take the certification so that I could work with people before I became a therapist, because that will be a different kind of work. Sex therapy is very much for psychotherapists, not so much psychoanalysts, but people who are trained either with a PhD, counseling degrees, and they are used to practicing one-on-one with people, going more into the past. A sex coach generally meets someone who has already done a lot of that work, if they have trauma issues that are impeding their sexuality, relationship issues. And I am meeting either the couple or the individual at the moment that they are like, I know what's going on and I need some help fixing this. Very often it is a very specific thing and they want to work with me to move towards a specific goal. Now, this can be an improvement, this can be a joy, or this can be what we might call an issue or a problem. I don't really like to use those words, but if a woman is, for example, unable to have an orgasm with her partner, but she can alone, that is, for example, an issue that I would help someone move towards. And they know, hopefully by this point, and if they don't, I will help them whether there is a medical problem or a psychological problem. So my very first duty as a sex coach is to check all of those things. So our first session is pretty much a long sexual history, either in a verbal exchange or the client takes the form, fills out what they can, and then the first session is very much discussing their sexual history in depth, as well as where they are now and where they would like me to take them. And then we see if we can work together. The reason that I do not work with every client that comes to me is because we need to make sure it's a right fit. The way that I'm working with them is I use the MEBS model, which is what Dr. Patty Britton trained us in, and where I got my certification. And what the MEBS model is that I am looking at all aspects of the client. I'm looking at their mind, their emotions, their body, their energy, and their spirit. Most people that come to me are open to working with all these aspects of themselves as they present themselves to me, but some people don't want to. And so that's a very quick and easy way to know that we wouldn't be a good match. A lot of the first steps in the first session, along with taking the sexual history, is making sure that I should be the first stop on their journey of healing in healing their sexuality. So, for example, I have referred clients out to a medical doctor because, again, if we take all the different components that I'm looking at a person, mind, emotions, body, energy, spirit, and I decide that there is a physical issue going on first that needs to be addressed, we as sex coaches are trained to look at all the different aspects of an issue that a client might be coming to us to make sure that there's not an issue that needs to be covered by the medical community first, or that needs to be covered by perhaps a therapist, as I said, because with my master's in clinical psychology, I am able to have a little bit more responsibility than most sex coaches for looking into what's going on with us humans and how to help us out of it. Now, my side as a yoga teacher, I mentioned that the last letter is spirit, and a lot of the times we do have a soul sickness around our sexuality, and that's not always an area that a therapist can address. And so because as a yoga teacher, I've worked with people and their spirituality, breath work, movement, a lot of that can come into this if it fits for the client, if they're already interested in those things. So you have to take within the MEBS model each of these different components, and I'm always looking at the whole picture of the person that comes to me to make sure that I have the skills that can help them. But we as sex coaches are trained to look at the whole picture because we are very often the person's first stop on their journey. I've worked with many different humans in different situations, alone and as couples and thruples. But the area that I tend to have the most experience in and be called on is in BDSM and polyamory, couples and single people getting into exploring it very much lately. A lot of my clientele has been cisgendered women exploring both their submissive and dominant sides in the BDSM scene in various parts of the world. And I also do work with couples quite frequently who are looking to open up their relationship for the first time. What working with all of those people has revealed to me is how incredibly powerful yet subtle this work is. Because with all of, the training that I have in clinical psychology, where therapy is a very, very complex, in-depth work with a lot of training involved, it has been beautiful and amazing to me to see how very simple things bring people to the place that they need to go. How a conversation, how a permission giving is something that they need to hear to move them to the place. Very often, I'm almost just like a voice, it's almost like I'm not in the room because really I am helping them move towards very often an answer that is already within them, that they already know. And so I really just feel like a participant in a process that is entirely the client's. And they walk in the door and I really just guide them. The path towards success that I've seen all the couples and my single clients arrive at, it was really already within them when they came in the door. And so it's at the end of every really successful set of sessions with a client, I really just feel like they did it all themselves. And I'm really just amazed how bringing people very often to their own presence, even just for example, in a couple, to have them come into their breath and to look in each other's eyes might not have been something they've done for years. And that can bring something out between them that's just really beautiful. So I feel really privileged to be able to do that kind of work.